It begins the way so many strange things do, in the part of the night where you are not fully awake, but not yet asleep. That unguarded space where the mind drifts and the body lies still, where time feels soft and the air feels heavier than it should. You hear something at first without noticing you've heard it, a faint hum woven into the silence of the room. It is not loud enough to startle you. It is not even distinct enough to name. It's the kind of sound you might mistake for the distant rush of cars on an empty road, the muted whir of an old refrigerator, the blood coursing past your own ears. But it moves. Not through the air, but inside you, sliding across the surface of thought like a fingertip across glass. And then, it shapes itself. One syllable. Your name. It's not shouted. It's not even spoken the way a person would say it. It arrives whole, as if the sound was already formed before it touched the air. It has weight but no breath. You know, in the place beyond logic, that you did not remember this voice. You received it. Delivered to you from somewhere you cannot point to. Somewhere you are not sure you want to know. Years before you heard it, others did too. If you dig deep enough, the trail is still there, half-broken links to forgotten forums, archives captured by chance between 2008 and 2011. Anonymous usernames. No profile pictures. No location tags. Just confessions written in jittery paragraphs. I heard it last night. It said something I didn't understand, but today, it happened. The events are mundane and impossible at once. The sound of glass breaking at 3:12 a.m., a phone call from a number they'd never seen, an accident they couldn't have predicted except they did. And the timestamps never lie. Posts made months, sometimes years before the described events occurred. Verified through cached pages, untouched metadata, and in one case, a courtroom transcript where a witness swore under oath that she had been warned by the whisper of the fire that would claim her neighbor's house. She told no one at the time, because how do you explain hearing the future in a voice that doesn't exist? In the darker corners of Reddit, /r/nosleep, /r/unresolved mysteries, the tone shifts. The stories stop reading like creative writing. The language turns clipped, desperate. People stop telling them as tales and start writing them as confessions, as though putting the words down might loosen the thing's grip. Some speak of hearing the voice buried beneath other sounds, the hiss between radio stations, the hum in a baby monitor, the stretch of tape hiss in an old cassette recording. Lower than the noise floor, where human hearing is supposed to fail, you can still make out names, dates, even coordinates whispered with surgical clarity. Once, there were YouTube compilations. Grainy still images of dark rooms. Subaudible whispers stitched together like evidence in a trial no one was holding. Predictive phrases layered over static. Coordinates flashed in the corner of the screen. The channels never lasted. Every uploader, suspended within 48 hours of posting. Some claimed takedowns. Others claimed something worse, visits, late-night knocks, messages left in their own voices that they never recorded. You want to dismiss it, auditory hallucinations, hypnagogic tricks, the mind's love for turning chaos into pattern. But somewhere between the first whisper and the second, the excuses begin to rot. You catch yourself listening for it at night, the way you'd listen for a storm rolling in over the hills. You strain for the sound until you almost imagine it, but when it comes, it's never imagined. And with it comes the thought you wish you could unthink. What if this is not a symptom, but a signal? What if hearing it is not random, but a selection? An opening move in a game you don't remember joining. A call from something that knows you, not as you are, but as you will be. If you've heard it once, it's already inside you. And it does not knock twice. It begins with a link you don't remember clicking. Not a website, exactly, not anymore, but the husk of one. A trail of corrupted files, broken images, and dead hyperlinks. No branding. No ads. No design. Just a plaintext directory with a single word at the top, like a label on a file that was never meant for you. Wishdom. Inside, the folders are named like case files, each with a human name you've never heard. But if you start opening them, the patterns tighten around you. Journal entries, screenshots, voice memos, fragments of lives belonging to strangers scattered across continents, who somehow all describe the same dream. Not just similar, identical. Word for word. Scene for scene. And in every version, a voice speaks from nowhere, and the waking life bends to obey it. In the web's deeper strata, buried in the Internet Archive's silent shelves, there are preserved captures of a blog that no longer exists, Wishdom stories. The tone is not casual. The posts are written like confessions from people who believe they've been chosen or condemned. They write about the whisper not as an experience, but as an order. Instructions given in fragments, always with a cost. For some, the voice led them into windfall opportunities they couldn't explain. For others, it ended in hospital wards, restraining orders, funerals. And in the margins, you notice something that feels colder than chance. The sequence. Event after event repeating across different lives, like actors performing the same script in different cities, years apart. Someone has already been tracking this. You find usernames, cross-referenced across conspiracy boards and UFO forums, separated by years but telling the same narrative beats. One thread in 2010 is nearly identical to a post made in 2017, down to the sentence breaks, as if the storyteller had been replaced, but the story remained intact. And then there's the file you weren't supposed to open. A PDF cached from a dead university server, stripped of its academic logo but not its citations. Title: Temporal Auditory Perception, Controlled Induction in Isolated Subjects. Most of the methodology is redacted, but what survives describes an experiment in which subjects, deprived of all sound for 72 hours, reported hearing injected auditory messages that predicted personal events. Several subjects experienced acute paranoia. 2 died within 6 months, both by circumstances described in the whispers. The deeper you dig, the worse the pattern looks. Metadata from the Wishdom Stories blog shows entries written before the events they describe, verified against public records. Posts dated weeks before a plane crash, days before a building fire, hours before a missing person alert. You want to believe it's a coincidence, a hoax, a clever stunt. But the more you follow the broken threads, the more it feels deliberate. As though this so-called archive isn't simply a forgotten corner of the internet, but a curated vault. Someone, or something, has been collecting these accounts, watching them, sorting them, waiting to see which stories end as written and which ones deviate. It never comes as a full thought. Never enough to give you context, just enough to shift you off the path you thought you were on. A half-formed phrase in the static between stations. A single word that makes you leave your coffee unfinished and walk out the door. An address fragment you don't remember searching, but when you follow it, you're there, 3 minutes early, standing in a place you swear didn't exist yesterday, knocking 3 times because something in you insists it has to be 3. They never tell you what will happen next. They never have to. Across forums, in anonymous interviews, in grainy voice memos passed through encrypted channels, the accounts match with disturbing precision. The Wishdom recipients, as they've come to be called, don't describe hearing instructions so much as feeling them, like remembering something you haven't done yet. A man in Michigan hears, "Don't look back," whispered as he steps off a bus. He obeys. 2 blocks later, he passes the aftermath of a fatal accident at the stop he left behind. A woman in rural France gets a fragment. Upstairs, 3rd door. She follows it in an abandoned farmhouse and finds photographs of herself from decades earlier, photos she swears she has never seen. Somewhere in the bowels of a FOIA release, there are half-burned traces of a program from the 1970s. The title is blacked out, the names are gone, but one phrase survives: auditory payloads. It sits there in the redacted wasteland like a landmine. No context, no explanation. Just the knowledge that someone, somewhere, was trying to insert commands directly into the human mind. On Reddit's /r/unresolved mysteries, a user compiles disappearances from the last 20 years. At first, the cases seem unrelated. A student vanishes on a weekend trip, a postal worker never returns from their route, a photographer's car is found abandoned in the desert. But in post-histories, all of them had written about the instructions before they vanished. They described the same surreal pull, the same compulsion to obey, the same gnawing suspicion that not following would be worse. Psychologists who've read the accounts talk about something they call pattern recognition addiction. The idea that once you've obeyed a whisper and survived, you start to crave the next one. You start chasing the feeling that you've been chosen, that you're part of something. It stops being about safety or danger. It's about completion. One surviving subject gave the only testimony on record, her voice low, as though saying it out loud might trigger another message. "I didn't want to do it," she said, but not doing it felt worse. She wouldn't say what she'd been told to do. She wouldn't say what happened when she did. She only said the voice hasn't come back. And that's what terrifies her. Some of them say they reached the end, that they followed every whisper, every turn, every inexplicable command until there was nothing left to obey. Others insist they broke free, cut the thread, walked away. Both stories are lies. The ones who truly answered don't return in the way you remember them, if they return at all. They talk about waking in the same bed in the same house, but feeling the weight in the air like an invisible pressure, the light falling differently through the windows, the mirrors catching something in their reflection that isn't quite them. In the archive, the patterns are unmistakable. Cross-reference timestamps place missing persons on the exact routes their whispers dictated. A jogger taking a detour into an unlit underpass, a commuter stepping off the bus 2 stops early, a delivery driver making an unscheduled left. The bodies are rarely found. When they are, the cause of death is inconclusive or listed simply as undetermined. On encrypted corners of the dark web, there's talk of a stage the regular forums won't acknowledge. They call it graduation. It's when the whispers stop being predictions, stop nudging you towards strange coincidences, and start commanding. There's no longer the pretense of choice. You move because the voice says so, because your body won't allow anything else. From the wreckage of a purged IRC channel, a handful of logs survive. Users comparing notes about memories they share that no one else recalls. A national disaster that never happened. A celebrity who, in this version of the world, never existed. Cities they can describe in perfect detail that no map will show. They write like they're trying to cling to a reality that's dissolving in their hands. The survivors, if you can call them that, speak of a silence that follows completion. Not just the absence of the whispers, but the absence of something fundamental. The ability to dream, to remember the faces of people they loved, to feel anything at all. Their voices are flat, their eyes unfocused, as though whatever made them human was left somewhere else. And maybe it was. Because the most unsettling theory in all of this is not that the ones who answered are gone, but that they're still here. In the same rooms, breathing the same air, watching through the same glass. Only now, it's not them looking at you. It never shouts. It doesn't need to. When it comes, it slips into your life like it's always been there, a voice you've known for years, wearing the tone of someone you'd follow without hesitation. A parent, a friend, a lover. You lean toward it instinctively, hungry for whatever it's about to tell you. And then, as the final word coils into your ear, you understand the truth you can't unhear. It wasn't calling your name. It was calling you home. Eyewitness accounts are scattered, fragmented, as though even memory resists holding on to the moment. They say the subject simply changes. 1 second they're speaking, the next they're not there anymore, even if their body remains. Some vanish into locked rooms with no exit. Others stay standing, eyes open, but the person you knew is erased in an instant, replaced by something that only wears their skin. Social threads, buried under the noise, track these moments in real time. A daughter live streaming a recipe tutorial, her voice suddenly dropping into that steady, unnatural cadence. A man giving a press interview, his sentence snapping mid-arc, syllables sliding into the rhythmic pulse that researchers have dubbed the Wishdom pattern. The comments fill with panic, timestamps marking the instant the shift occurs, before the accounts go dark. One leaked police recording is almost too subtle to notice, until you know what to listen for. An officer, recounting a missing persons case, pauses for breath, and then repeats a phrase from the earliest whisper archives, word for word. His pitch changes as though another mouth is speaking through his. He doesn't notice. Or he can't. In the Internet Archive, the last surviving capture of the Wishdom blog holds only one thing. a broken audio file. Its title is a warning, do not listen, but the waveform is there, jagged and incomplete. Those who've tried to restore it claim the first 3 seconds are nothing but static. Then, under the static, a single word begins to form. And that's where the paranoia settles in, heavier than any sound. Because if you've heard it, even once, even in a dream, you've already been marked. You won't know when the final call will come. Only that, when it does, you'll already be leaning in.